The grand mansion loomed like a fortress of glass and stone, its towering windows reflecting the cold, grey light of a winter morning. Inside, chaos reigned. The piercing shrieks of two 6-year-old twins echoed through the marble halls, accompanied by the crash of a porcelain vase shattering against the floor. Another nanny, the seventh in as many months, stormed out the front door, her suitcase half-packed, her face a mask of frustration and defeat. The twins, Liam and Leela, stood at the top of the grand staircase, their identical faces alight with mischief, their laughter sharp and unrepentant. Their father, Alexander Hartley, a millionaire tech mogul whose empire of innovation had made him a household name, stood in the foyer below, his shoulders slumped, his eyes hollow with exhaustion. No one could tame his children. No one could bring order to the chaos that had consumed his home since his wife's death 2 years ago. The mansion, once filled with warmth and laughter, had become a battleground, and Alexander was losing hope that it could ever be anything else. But then, a soft knock came at the service entrance, and a woman stepped into their lives, a humble maid named Clara, whose quiet strength and unassuming presence would unravel the Hartley family's pain in ways no one could have imagined. If you believe in the power of kindness, second chances, and the beauty of unexpected connections, please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment with the line, "Kindness always wins," and subscribe to Kindness Speaks for more heartwarming stories that remind us of the good in the world. Now, let's dive into this emotional journey. Clara was no stranger to hardship. At 32, she had spent her life piecing together a living from odd jobs, her hands calloused from years of scrubbing floors and washing dishes. Her small apartment in the city's poorest district was a testament to her modest existence, furnished with second-hand furniture and warmed by a single space heater. But Clara carried a quiet resilience, forged in the crucible of a childhood marked by loss. Her mother had passed when she was 10, leaving her to care for her younger brother, Tommy, who had been born with a heart condition that required constant medical attention. Clara had worked tirelessly to keep him alive, taking on any job she could find, from cleaning houses to waitressing at greasy diners. When Tommy passed away at 16, Clara's world shattered, but she carried on, her heart scarred but still open to the world's small mercies. She believed in second chances, not because she had been given many, but because she had seen what happened when people stopped believing in them. When she saw the ad for a maid position at the Hartley mansion, she applied without hesitation, though the rumors about the untamable twins had reached even her small corner of the city. Clara wasn't looking for glory or recognition, she just needed a job. But something about the Hartley family called to her, a whisper of purpose she couldn't ignore. The mansion was unlike anything Clara had ever seen. Its sprawling rooms were filled with opulent furniture, crystal chandeliers, and artwork that could have funded a small country. But beneath the grandeur, there was a palpable emptiness. The air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for something to break the cycle of chaos. Clara's first day was a blur of activity, polishing silver, mopping floors, and navigating the labyrinthine corridors while trying to stay out of the twins' path. Liam and Leela were a force of nature, their pranks relentless and the defiance unwavering. They had rigged a bucket of water above a doorway, which Clara narrowly avoided, and left a trail of glitter across the dining room table that took hours to clean. The other staff whispered warnings about the children, calling them little terrors, and predicting Clara wouldn't last a week. But Clara noticed something the others hadn't. The twins' mischief wasn't just rebellion. Their eyes, bright with defiance, also held a flicker of pain, a longing for something they couldn't name. Clara saw it because she knew that look. She had seen it in her brother's eyes, in her own reflection after years of loss. The twins weren't just acting out, they were screaming for someone to see them. Alexander Hartley was a man stretched thin. His tech empire demanded his attention, with board meetings, product launches, and investor calls consuming his days. But at home, he was drowning. Since his wife, Emily, had died in a car accident, he had tried to fill the void with nannies, tutors, and therapists, all of whom had been driven away by the twins' antics. He loved his children fiercely, but their behavior baffled him. He didn't know how to reach them, how to bridge the chasm that had opened between them after Emily's death. Liam, once a shy boy who loved drawing, now spent his days plotting pranks, his sketches abandoned in a drawer. Leela, who had once followed her mother around the garden, singing made-up songs, now used her sharp wit to outsmart every adult who crossed her path. Alexander felt like a failure, not just as a father but as a man who had built a fortune but couldn't build a home. When he met Clara, he barely registered her presence. She was just another face in the revolving door of staff, someone to keep the mansion running while he tried to hold his family together. But Clara saw him, too, the way his hands trembled slightly when he spoke of his children, the way his eyes lingered on a framed photo of Emily in the study. She saw a man who was grieving, just like his children, but who didn't know how to start healing. Clara's first real interaction with the twins came on her third day. She was cleaning the library, a cavernous room lined with books that hadn't been touched in years, when Liam and Leela burst in, armed with water guns filled with blue food coloring. They aimed at the white curtains, giggling maniacally, but Clara didn't flinch. Instead, she set down her mop, crossed her arms, and said, "You know, if you're going to make a mess, you might as well make it a good one. Blue's nice, but have you ever tried mixing colors? You could make a whole rainbow." The twins froze, caught off guard by her calm tone. They didn't shoot the curtains. Instead, they lowered their water guns, eyeing her warily, as if waiting for the catch. There wasn't one. Clara went back to cleaning, humming softly, and the twins lingered, watching her. It was a small moment, but it was the first crack in their armor. Clara didn't try to control them or lecture them. She didn't demand respect or threaten punishment. She just let them be, and in that space, something shifted. The twins didn't know it yet, but Clara was different. Over the next few weeks, Clara became a quiet fixture in the mansion. She cleaned with a steady rhythm, her presence unobtrusive but constant. She didn't chase the twins or try to force them into submission. Instead, she left small invitations, a tray of cookies on the kitchen counter with a note that said, "For artists and adventurers," or a stack of old books about pirates and explorers left in their playroom. She noticed the things they loved, even if they tried to hide it. Liam's abandoned sketchbook, tucked under his bed, was filled with drawings of fantastical creatures, and Clara began leaving pencils and paper in places he'd find them. Leela's love for music surfaced in the way she hummed when she thought no one was listening, and Clara would play soft classical music while cleaning nearby. The twins tested her, of course. They hid her cleaning supplies, switched the sugar with salt, and once even locked her in a closet. But Clara never lost her temper. She'd laugh, shake her head, and say things like, "You two are clever, but I've got a few tricks up my sleeve, too." And she did. She'd leave scavenger hunts for them, leading to small treasures like a shiny stone or a feather, turning their mischief into a game they could all play. The turning point came one stormy night, when the power went out, plunging the mansion into darkness. Alexander was away on a business trip, and the other staff had gone home, leaving Clara to manage the twins alone. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, and the twins, usually fearless, were uncharacteristically quiet. Clara found them huddled in their playroom, their faces pale in the glow of a flashlight. Leela clutched a stuffed rabbit, her bravado gone, and Liam's hands were shaking as he tried to draw. Clara didn't ask questions. She grabbed blankets, pillows, and a battery-powered lantern, and built a fort in the middle of the room. She told them stories, not fairy tales, but real stories, about her brother Tommy, about the time they built a fort like this one during a blackout, about how they'd pretend they were explorers in a far-off land. The twins listened, their eyes wide, their defenses down. For the first time, they didn't push her away. When Leela asked, in a small voice, if Clara was ever scared, Clara told the truth. "All the time," she said. "But being scared just means you're brave enough to keep going." That night, the twins fell asleep in the fort, their small hands curled around Clara's, and something unspoken passed between them, a fragile trust, a flicker of hope. Alexander noticed the change when he returned. The twins weren't suddenly angels. There were still spills and pranks, but there was a softness in them he hadn't seen since Emily's death. Liam started drawing again, leaving sketches on the fridge for Clara to find. Leela began singing openly, her voice echoing through the halls. Clara didn't take credit, didn't boast or seek praise. She just kept working, her quiet presence a steady anchor in the storm of the grief. But Alexander saw it. He saw the way Clara listened to the twins, the way she seemed to understand their pain without needing to be told. He began to talk to her, at first about small things, the weather, the twins' latest antics, but soon about deeper things. He told her about Emily, about the guilt that gnawed at him for not being enough for his children. Clara listened, her eyes kind but unflinching, and shared pieces of her own story. She told him about Tommy, about the years she spent fighting to keep him alive, about the hole his death had left in her heart. Alexander realized that Clara wasn't just a maid. She was a survivor, someone who had walked through fire and still carried light. The climax came on the twins' 7th birthday. Alexander had planned an extravagant party, complete with a magician, a bounce house, and a cake the size of a small car. But the twins were restless, their smiles forced. Clara saw it and, without asking permission, took them aside. She led them to the garden, where Emily had once spent hours planting roses with Leela. The garden had been neglected since her death, overgrown with weeds, but Clara had been quietly tending to it in her spare time. She handed the twins small shovels and packets of seeds, and together, they planted a new rosebush. Clara told them about her mother's garden, how it had been a place of healing for her, and how they could make this garden their own. Liam, usually so guarded, began to cry, and Leela hugged him, her own tears falling. They didn't need to say it, but Clara understood. They were mourning their mother, but they were also learning to live again. Alexander watched from the window, his heart aching with a mix of grief and gratitude. Clara had given his children something no nanny, no therapist, no amount of money could, a path back to themselves. Months passed, and the Hartley mansion transformed. The twins still had their moments of mischief, but their pranks were less cruel, more playful. Liam's drawings covered the walls, and Leela's singing filled the air. Clara became more than a maid, she was family. Alexander offered her a raise, a promotion, anything to keep her there, but Clara just smiled and said she was happy where she was. She didn't need more money or a title. She needed purpose, and she had found it in the twins' laughter, in the way Alexander's shoulders no longer carried the weight of the world. The mansion, once a cold fortress, became a home again, its halls alive with warmth and possibility. Clara's own heart, scarred by years of loss, began to heal, too. She saw her brother in the twins' resilience, her mother in their small acts of kindness. She had come to the mansion looking for a job, but she had found a second chance, not just for the Hartleys, but for herself. As the sun sets on this heart-touching story, we're reminded that kindness, patience, and love can change even the most broken hearts. If Clara's journey moved you, if it reminded you of the power of second chances, please hit that like button, leave a comment with the line, "Kindness always wins," and share this video with someone who needs a little hope today. Subscribe to Kindness Speaks, and let's keep spreading stories that lift us up and bring us together. Thank you for watching, and may we all find the courage to be someone's Clara.